Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to take a look at another legend team in the Open Great League. This is the second legend that I at least know from, and so congrats to them. A very strong player from Japan. Link in the description as well to their Twitter account. Thanks so much also always to basically let me know your teams, which is kind as well. Like, not every player of course wants to reveal the teams that they used, but here we're going to take a look at a team with Trevenant. Trevenant in general is a very strong Pokemon in the current meta. Why is that so? It's a grass type that can actually kinda deal with Skarmory, which is kinda rare to be seen, and so this Pokemon has kinda an advantage in terms of that. Also, of course, the ghost typing helps out against all the fighting type Pokemon right now, and so Trevenant is most likely the best grass type right now. There could be other grass types like Victory Bell that you could argue being a little bit better, but at least the best toxic Pokemon here for the grass typing. Definitely a very solid one for sure. Here we're gonna see the Skarmory in the back, which is kind of funny, but we're gonna still have our Poliwrath. They were running a normal Poliwrath, not the Shadow variant. Here, I think the moveset is right, I'm not too sure, like I was not asking about the moveset, but I just went for the standard ones because I think this is going to be kinda correct. And we're gonna see here that we're going to be able to just counter them all the way down. They can still go for another charge move, but it doesn't matter, it does not. We can just go for the full farm down, go for an Icy Wind, try to debuff the opponent's attack, and like, what do they want to do? They have to hit a Shadow Ball here, they still have to hit an Ice Punch. They know already that this game is over, and so we can move on into the next one. Moving on, we're going to have a Lantern here. I don't like this. I don't like this in the lead because we have the better answer in the back, but we kind of have to stay in here because our Say Swap is going to be a Water-type Pokemon. Do you want to swap in a Water-type Pokemon against a Lantern? I don't think so. So, I decided to use no shield here actually because we can take one Surf in this scenario and we can actually outspeed them after hitting one charge move to go for an Aerial Ace, and so this was actually a kind of decent matchup for me, but still I would have rather had my Trevenant aligned. Speaking of Trevenant, we're going to see here one from the opponent, and our Gligar even gets to another Aerial Ace, which is kind of great. But we are still going to be in a little bit of a tough spot, and honestly, I kind of maybe make a misplay here. What I should have done is I should have most likely went straight for a Seed Bomb in order to try to force a shield from the opponent, but I rather decided to go for the full farm down. As the opponent goes for another charge move, they decide to go for a double bait, but they're going to have in the back an Annihilate. And I make another mistake here, because they're very likely to go straight for the next charge move, and I decided to go ahead and go for my Seed Bomb. I could have tried to catch this one onto my Poliwrath. And this is going to be the Night Sash. It would be resisted on my Poliwrath, and it would have been definitely a way better play. But there's something other coming up here right now, which I did not expect at all, because usually we should be able to outspeed them, but they can go for a charge move here, and I was like, yeah, Night Sash not going to be that big of an issue here, but it was no Night Sash, it was a close combat. I did not expect this at all, and so I kind of threw away this game. This could have been a win if I just played better. There were so many ways of winning this game, but I just threw it away, but also I didn't expect that moveset. Next opponent, I would play differently against Ninetales if I would play this matchup again. Like, this is always where I kind of try to go for the bait because I expect Ninetales to use a shield here, but so far they never used a shield. You should go for the dig here, because as you're gonna see right now, this is going to be a very tough matchup for you if you don't go for your dig as a charge move. And also I think you would have been able to reach maybe another one in time as well, but here we will be able to go for the Aerial Ace. The opponent is going to let this move go through, but now we are shield down, but at least we can realign, which is going to be great because there is going to be that Lantern lurking in the back, and they have a Hakomo here. Was a little bit late on the swap, like could have maybe swapped one fast move earlier, but we're still going to have Icy Wind plus counter, which is going to be great. They decided to go for the bait here with a Brick Break, but Icy Wind is coming through, is going to be able to force a shield from the opponent and also drop the opponent's attack, which is going to be great for my matchup with the Trevenant. Here I decide to go ahead and let this move go through because Trevenant is still going to be in a great spot and I can just go for the full farm down. I am not going to use a shield here. The opponent is debuffed, and also if they go for the Brick Break bait basically to drop my defense, it would be kind of tough if I use a shield there. So I'd rather go ahead and get all the energy in the world. Have now basically 2 Seed Bombs stored already. I need to get to 3 though, but hopefully we can still outspeed the opponent's Lantern. It's going to be a tough matchup in general, but as long as we're going to get close to the next Seed Bomb, we're going to be able to win this anyway, as we can reach the next one in time, and this is going to be a very good game here. Moving on to the next opponent. There are some issues for this team. I have to say this. For example, Skarmory itself can be a little bit of an issue. But also here we're going to get out the Gligar. Like, this is a very, very common card nowadays as well. Like Skarmory, lead, Gligar, Say Swap, and then something in the back that can deal with Lantern. Like a Grass type, for example, would make sense. Or like a Dragonair would make sense. But this is a very great core, but also very tricky. Here, as a non-shadow variant of Poliwrath, we just barely miss out of getting to another Icy Wind. And this is going to be very tough for us, as now we kind of have to hope that with the shield advantage that we have, our Pokemon in the back, our Trevenant, is going to be enough to knock out the opponent's 2 Pokemon that they still have left. If we're lucky, they might have something like a Whiscash in the back, which would be kind of great. But we have to hope that this is going to be the case, because otherwise, there's not a lot that we can do here. The opponent goes for another Aerial Ace I can swap out, and they decide to go ahead and stay in here, actually, which kind of means that they're very likely going to be weak against us in the back. They still do a ton of damage with their fast move, but it's likely not super effective, and I expect that they would swap out, and so they're swapping out into a Whiscash. Maybe, just maybe, I should have went ahead and used 2 Seed Bombs here, actually, because I tried to go for the full farm down. I kinda going to be forced to let the Mud Bomb go through, but it was actually a Scald, which I did not expect at all. I thought it was just a Mud Bomb at this point. There's not a lot that I can do anymore. I can try to go for the bait here. It does not really work out at all. I don't get to another charge move. And I feel like, again, this game maybe would have been winnable if I played it a little bit differently. If I went for the Seed Bomb a little bit earlier against the opponent's Whiscash, I think I still had a chance of winning this game. But it is what it is. We can move on to the next opponent. Next one coming through, we're going to have a very bad lead for us. It's going to be the Empoleon in the lead, and we swap out immediately into our hard answer of Poliwrath. I would not really recommend you to say swap in the current meta, at least. The Trevenant, there are quite a lot of normal types around, and it's a little bit tricky for this Pokemon. But here we're going to get out the Clefable. If I wanted to, I would most likely be able to actually realign here, because look at the counter damage. It's actually kind of adding up, and we can reach another charge move in time, which is going to drop the attack of the opponent. But honestly, because I know what they have in the lead, I kind of want to get some energy advantage onto my Gligar, and I think this is going to be the right call to do. Here we're going to swap out, we're going to get some energy, but they actually still reach another charge move, which is going to do quite some damage, but hopefully not in a range where we would get farmed down by the Empoleon. Hopefully they go back into the Empoleon, because we have the energy advantage. We can go straight for the dig, and this should be enough to knock them out, but also we should outspeed them still to the next one, as we have that energy advantage from prior. So here the opponent goes for a charge move, most likely the Hydro Cannon. We are forced to use a shield here. That's going to be our best bet, and we just have to hope that we can maybe win with our Trevenant in the bag. Let's find out here. We can knock them out. We're going to be in a very decent spot at this point. I just swap out immediately. It's going to be the Altaria, and this is going to be sadly a tough matchup for us, as the opponent going to be able to go for a Sky Attack after our Shadow Ball, which is of course going to knock us out. But we can still do at least some damage. If we're gonna get to another Aerial Ace, I'm fairly certain we actually still have a chance of winning this game. But is Gligar healthy enough for this? No shot. Like, sadly it's going to be a loss, but we can move on to the next opponent. Altaria is just not leaving us. I made a video about Altaria earlier, by the way. If you haven't seen this one, definitely check it out. But here's actually a matchup that I found kinda interesting. We are, of course, kinda getting unlucky here, which is kinda happening. Like, this is why I don't really like to use Scald Pokemon, because I basically never get debuff. But yeah, we're gonna see here that Azumarill actually is not going to have the greatest matchup against the non-shadow variant of Poliwrath. I thought this matchup would be better for it. But as you can see, we are basically not taking any damage from Bubble, and they're not going to be able to one-shot us with the Poliwrath here. And this is going to be great, as we can still force them to go for another charge move. And I'm going to try to overfarm quite a bit with my Trevenant, as we of course had that really bad lead, so we kind of need to get some kind of energy advantage. I just decided to use a shield here as well. I know that they don't have Ice Beam, because otherwise I wouldn't go for double Poliwrath. Or actually, let this move go through even. That's going to be even better, I guess. But let's see what the opponent going to go back into. They're going to go into the Altaria. We have to hope that we can still somehow win this with the rest of our Pokemon. They decide to use a shield, which is a smart move, but we can still reach another charge move, and now we're going to be forced to swap out immediately into our Gligar. They use 2 shields, which is very, very smart by them, because it's going to be the hardest hitting move, but they're going to run a Ferrothorn in the back, and this is going to be a little bit of a trickier one for us. We can go for a dig, which is going to do neutral damage and going to 2-shot them for sure, but I cannot reach the next one in time. They decide to go for a charge move. It's going to be the Mirror Shot, and they drop our attack, and this is so unfortunate, because because the attack drop means that we have to swap out eventually against the Altaria. Is Aerial Ace is just not going to cut it anymore with the attack drop. So like again, like we didn't get any attack drop with Scald, and the opponent just goes for one mirror shot, which has a way lower percentage of getting the attack drop and gets it immediately. I always love this, but here we can go for the Aerial Ace. I know that we should be able to win CMP tie, so I decide to swap out, and I actually can catch their move onto my Trevenant. This was not really intended, but I was just trying to basically revert the drop of my attack by swapping out. And so we can go for the Aerial Ace. It is going to connect, and we can farm them all the way down to win the game. Next opponent. This is going to be now kind of in the area where I kind of have to talk a little bit about the weaknesses of this team. Look at Mantine, look at this team, and look what Pokemon can beat it. Not really any of them. We can still at least have a neutral matchup with our Gligar, but it is going to be a little bit of a tough one. And there's going to be other Pokemon that are going to be kind of similar. If you take a look, any kind of Pokemon that has Ice type coverage in the lead is going to be kind of tricky. If it's an Alolan Sandslash, if it's like a Dugong, if it's anything, like maybe even, I mean, Azumarill is going to be also a little bit tricky in the lead. There are going to be always some Pokemon that are going to be a little bit tricky, but this is kind of the thing with like rank 1 in the world teams, or like those early legend teams as well. They're in a very, very different meta towards what we kind of encounter all day. And so here we're going to be able to actually see that the opponent stops into a Lantern for whatever reason and kind of throws away the game. Most likely running like triple water or something, because now they decide to forfeit anyway. But yeah, the meta is just different for them up there. And what this kind of means is that a lot of times the teams that you see very high up on the leaderboards, they sometimes just don't really work in lower elo ranges. I feel like this team is still solid. Like I still think that this team can be very decent. Like you saw already, some of the losses that I had were based on my own mistakes. So like I don't really want to pull it onto the team. And I don't think it's going to be a bad team in general, but it definitely has a lot of weaknesses which can be exploited in the current meta. I feel like it's currently a little bit too weak against something like a Skarmory. I feel like it can be a little bit too weak against something like an Alolan Sandslash, which I kind of see rising up in popularity recently as well. So yeah, it is what it is. Like you can kind of decide for yourself if you like this team or not. But here we're going to see the area is connecting against the Umbreon. Very great for Gligar to win this lead matchup. Here, for example, another weakness for this team. Of course, Talonflame is not really that common. I kind of want to make a video about this Pokemon again as well eventually, but we're going to have a lot of Shadow Pokemon coming up, and I actually have some videos already recorded for the Great League which just didn't really find time because of, for example, the Altaria team, or like Altaria in general earlier on was just updated the night before, or now this team here as well, getting this player to Legend was just something that happened just now. So like there's some stuff that I kind of hold back on just because how kind of the current circumstances are. Here we're going to see one of the best matchups for Trevenant actually. Gallade is going to have a Leaf Blade, which is going to be resisted, or Close Combat, which is going to be resisted. But one issue is here that sometimes at least the opponent can just go ahead and still get to another one. I was like thinking, this is going to knock me out here, right? But it doesn't, and I think the opponent undercharged this, which is a very smart move, because like this, I am going to be in a spot where they can sadly just win the CMP tie against us, and one fly is going to be enough to knock us out. Very close though, but like Talonflame can be tricky for this team. You know what can also be tricky for this team? Exactly this Pokemon. And this is kind of what I want to showcase here as well. It is basically impossible to win against Alolan Sandslash leads, I would imagine. The issue here is we can still try to force some shields with our lead, but we have to kind of get into our Poliwrath eventually. And like the best play for us is to try to catch a move from the opponent here. The opponent knows what they're doing. They're waiting out one turn, which for me, like I would like to do the same as well with like waiting out one turn before throwing my charge moves. Issue is I just don't trust the game at the current time, at least on my phone. It is just too clunky that if I wait one turn, it might even wait 2 turns. And here, the opponent is just going to be able to kind of hardwall us. There's still a chance of maybe winning this game though, because what we can see here, we can go for another Scald, which again doesn't get the debuff. I think we didn't get a single debuff this entire video with Scald, which is kind of mad by the way. But what we can do here is we can go into our Trevenant and we can overfarm. We win CMP against the Alolan Sandslash with this Pokemon, fairly certain at least. And so the opponent is going to be forced to swap out into a different Pokemon. Issue is they can snipe me at any point, and this is something which we cannot really predict, as we can try to look if they're going to go into the right Pokemon. They do not. And now they just snipe me and there was nothing I can do about it. So it is what it is. Hope you guys still enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.